Hey there, Dr. Kara again from KH Evolution. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about episode 10 of my podcast, Ascended Evolution. In episode 10, I get a little vulnerable about my experiences, my recent experiences in a class that I've been taking. I've been learning about the rites of the Moina Key. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in an upcoming video. But for today, I want to talk about the vulnerability that got brought up for me as a student in this class, because I think that in general, we are taught to push away or push down or hide from our vulnerability. And in the medicine wheel, which you probably all know by now, is a guiding light, a guiding force, a template for me in terms of my learning and the guidance that I receive in how I approach life and how I make decisions. And so vulnerability is looked at in the west direction of the medicine wheel with the archetype Mother Jaguar. And Mother Jaguar can teach us so much about our personal power and how we claim that personal power. And one of the ways that we claim it is by stepping into our vulnerability and by really feeling our vulnerability and understanding what it's all about. It is normal to be vulnerable. But we are conditioned in our culture to run from our vulnerability. And as I said, hide from our vulnerability. And when we learn how to stand in it, when we learn how to sit in it, the uncomfortableness of it, right? The uncomfortableness of feeling exposed or naked, it's that space where if we give ourselves the time and the willingness to ask questions and to journal and to do the things that as a spiritual person might, as a person practicing spiritual evolution, we can really step into our personal power through the path of the vulnerability. The vulnerability is the emotional trigger that gets our attention. And so often we just let go of the emotional trigger. We don't pay attention to it. We don't look into it with greater depth and detail. And when you listen to the podcast, you'll discover that one of my exchanges with some other students in this class triggered me to really not speak up for myself. And this has been a common theme for me. And so when I sat in the vulnerability, what I learned was that I really want to start speaking my truth a little bit more strongly, a little bit more powerfully. Maybe that's why I'm here sharing this information in a video with you today, is because I'm stepping outside my box or pushing myself beyond some of my previous self-imposed limits to really come forward and share that it's not an easy path when we move through the vulnerability, when we decide to sit in it. In fact, it can be, sometimes it can be a quick sit, and sometimes it can be many times sitting in the vulnerability and the uncomfortableness as we gain more and more insight so that we can come full circle with it. But I urge you to take a look in your own life, take a look at how often throughout the day or maybe the week that you meet people or you have encounters and they cause you to question yourself. They cause you to question what you know and what you held as being true. because it's important to question ourselves, right? We want to question ourselves, but we don't want to question ourselves. We don't want to find ourselves questioning all the time because we don't feel like we're enough. We want to question with the intention of wanting to rise up out of the muck, to rise up out of the situation and to grow from it. And I hope my example in the podcast that I encourage you to go listen to, because I'm not going to revisit what the specific scenario was, but I hope that my experience can lend some insight to you and perhaps some courage to take a look more deeply at the times in your life when you're pushed out of the center of who you are, when you're pushed out of the core of your being, and you question so much that you become wavering, that you become unsettled. And then you're not able to really lead from that zone of genius. You're not really able to lead and share your medicine in an effective and appropriate way, in the way that is your birthright, in a way that you came here to do. And so, the vulnerability is important. The uncomfortableness is important. And, if we want to evolve and we want to ascend as we evolve, we want to be willing to step into the vulnerability. We want to be willing to take a look at it and understand it with a little greater depth so that we can grow and change and rise up out of these circumstances that keep us small or keep us contained within these self-imposed boundaries. And this is just one example of one of the lessons along the medicine wheel that we can start to implement in our life and to bring forward greater presence in ourselves, in our own lives. But the medicine wheel is a beautiful template. It's full of lessons and it's timeless. And no matter where you are in your evolutionary process, I believe that it will support you and guide you in the most mystical ways. It has been here for thousands of years. And so, check out khevolution.com if you want to learn more about the medicine wheel. I have lots of ways that you can connect with me and grow and expand in this way. And don't forget to go take a listen to the podcast. And I'm looking forward to any comments that you want to share, because we're all in this together. Have a great rest of your day.